A lot of people don't really understand what the job title CEO is. The soul aspect of business is so important because you can do things that did light you up 2 years ago that they just don't anymore.
Yeah.
Because your soul has grown, you've grown, you're interested in different things, you can offer more value to the marketplace.
If you create value, there is a moment when a business is really valuable and it's not guaranteed to stay that way. If your goal is to exit, be clear on the number you want to exit for.
Yeah, I sold way too late and probably sold it for about 20 times less than the value had also just slipped off the face of the planet.
Yeah.
That's where, as a business owner, time like CEO days, meditation, they're almost work in and of itself as a CEO because you need the space. Like, you're not going to find that space in the office with your team. Space. No magic is created without space.
How have you set that up with the team so that they understand when you are available and when you're not available?
It's because I have no idea how much any of my staff work. Zero idea. Freedom is the goal.
Why do you think so many people feel guilty about taking time away from their business? Yeah, so true.
It's really important to analyse those compulsions because those compulsions will be your prison.
You've got long COVID.
God.
What is that like?
The big thing is depersonalisation with low testosterone in men, so it feels like you're living outside of your body, and that period had really tuned me in. We are not just a physical body, we are a mental and an emotional and an energetic body as well.
I love that insight. So if somebody wants to improve their performance and become more awesome as a CEO, where should they be looking to start?
To crack that, I'm going to have a list of 5.
That's a powerful shift. If you're a CEO and you're really busy, what's 2 or 3 things that will help them build a 1, 2, 3, 4 million pound business, but have the energy and the clarity to kind of go on that journey?
The big thing that I find people are held back by is they're not.
So welcome along to this edition of the Grown Up Business Podcast. It's going to be awesome. Trust me. So, I couldn't resist that one. Anyway, listen, welcome along today. Incredible entrepreneur, and also somebody I'm really interested to talk about everything to do about performance and nutrition, scaling businesses. This one is for you if you're interested in growing a business, not sacrificing your life or burning out in the process. And if you really want to learn how to scale, but do it in a way that is sustainable, but also allows you to operate at a high performance level as an entrepreneur. So super excited. My guest today is a multi-award winning high performance coach, international speaker, nutritionist, founder of 21 award winning brand Awesome Supplements. We're going to talk about that, which is great. We'll talk about that later. Has a deep passion for human optimization, and really is all about helping entrepreneurs learn how to thrive, build a thriving business without sacrificing themselves physically, emotionally, and mentally. Well, I've probably done at least 2 of those 3 things in my career so far.
Me too.
Yeah, just so you don't feel like we're all immune for this. We're also going to talk about your battle with long COVID and the kind of how that led to a blueprint really for more authentic leadership and kind of entrepreneurial fulfillment. So first of all, welcome to the show, Ben Coomber.
Thank you for having me.
Gus, great to have you here, man. Amazing. So first of all, have to ask, how did you come up with the name Awesome Supplements first? Like, where did that come from?
So we were sat in a team meeting at the time. I ran a nutrition education company, and the team from that company sat around, and I'd been working with a supplement company, and we'd basically fallen out. And in my naivety, I'd been like, well, how hard can it be to set up a supplement company?
Right.
And we were like throwing names around the table, and someone just said, you say awesome all the time. And I was like, you can't call a supplement company Awesome Supplements. And then we sort of sat with it and we were like, but it makes naming products really easy. Awesome protein, awesome electrolytes, awesome vitamin or whatever.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh. And then I just sort of sat with it and I was like, yeah, all right, let's do this. And for me, awesome, the word it's about an energy.
Right.
For me, it's an energetic thing. I want to feel awesome. I want to be awesome. I want to perform awesome. And most people can kind of resonate with that. They can feel it.
Yep.
And I know it has a bit of an American twang to it because they love to say it. And that's where it started.
Love it. And how big was the team at that time when you had that discussion? Were you a sort of smallish team at the time?
I reckon there was probably 6 or 7 of us around the table. Some of the core like operational team, and then a handful of coaches.
Right.
We did like coaching and education at the time in the nutrition space.
And how did you get into that? So walk us back. How did you get into that business at that point?
So I became a personal trainer at 20 after my physical transformation and got really into fitness.
Right.
That led me down the nutrition and training path. Went to uni as a late student at 21, did sports performance and coaching as a degree. And while I was at uni, they launched an enterprise center.
Okay.
They sent around an email to all the students and were like, who wants to start a business? And I'd had this idea in my head,
Right.
because I'd started to see the online world sort of happen. And I've always been big into travel. And I was like, well, if I had an online business, I could travel and work and not be beholden to anywhere.
Yeah.
And they advertised that they had grants. So I went and sat down with the enterprise manager, and he was like, look, I think your idea is plausible. We'll help you develop the idea. You can apply for some grants. I also asked my mum for some money, used a bit of my student loan, and I set up my first nutrition coaching company. This would have been in 2008.
Okay.
Called yourdietadvisor.co.uk. Doesn't exist anymore, thankfully. Made all the mistakes: wrong avatar, wrong brand, poor product delivery, too complex, like all the mistakes. And then
But they're important, right? I mean, like they
totally.
like. I think if you think you're going to set your first business up and get it all right, the amount of people who do that are incredibly rare.
Yep.
I've not met many.
Yep.
So I think those mistakes or those lessons or those learnings they're really important, right? Because you shouldn't hold back for fear of making them. Correct.
Totally. And I was very fortunate to have great people around me. And I was like, look, this isn't working. And they sat down with me. And they taught me through brand and avatar and really took me on like a journey of redefining the business. We then rebuilt it. And it was a resounding success. I aimed the business essentially at the avatar of me. I was into sport. I was into gym. I was into performance, body composition. So we built a coaching company, built it to have a team of about 12 nutrition coaches.
Really? Wow.
With hundreds of clients all around the world. And then kind of my expansive brain was like, well, I'm a little bit bored of nutrition coaching now, and I want to have a bigger impact. So we moved into education and developed a nutrition education course. And then over time, we became the first company to develop with the government regulations a level 4 framework in nutrition coaching. And yeah, that was the core kind of business. And that was a profitable company, and that allowed me to launch into the world of supplements with the profit from that company
Right.
in 2016.
So, okay, that's a really fascinating story to me because I'd want to unpack something. So I think, were you building a personal brand with that then? Was it, okay. So I think one of the things that I always think is interesting is how, especially in the coaching space or any expert space, obviously we both believe in building power of personal brand, but how did you transition that to having sort of 10 or 11 nutrition coaches delivering it? How did you sort of navigate that?
So the personal brand that I had was a huge funnel for the traffic,
Right.
Probably 70-80% of the funnel. And I think I'd built up enough of the trust in the marketplace that I was able to say, I've helped train these coaches, but they all specialize in their own different things. So for example, I don't do endurance nutrition, so go work with Phil, who's our endurance coach. I don't do this, so go and work with that expert.
Right.
So everyone was very niched under the umbrella brand.
Okay.
And it kind of seemed to work. I'd say 80-90% of the time. Of course, some customers are going to, not.
Yeah.
That's fine. And it kind of worked. And I think because we were quite new into the market, we'd built up a lot of brand equity quite, I'd say, quickly. It took me quite a long time to build up my personal brand. I remember blogging every year, and I think I got to like the year mark and I got my first like on Facebook of posting the link of my blog. Like, none of these things are an easy road of building a personal brand. So yeah, it worked.
So which bits became the accelerators then for the personal brand then?
The podcast.
Right.
That was one of my big brand accelerators. So it kind of converged, in the world of business is that kind of adage of like, you've got to kind of get to the 3-year mark, and then if you're really going to get somewhere. You've got proof of products, you've got enough customer success, it starts to steamroll.
Yep.
And that happened to me. I got to the 3.5 year mark. I launched a podcast. It was the first health and nutrition podcast in the UK. This was 2012. I got on the main stage at Body Power, which was the biggest fitness event at the time, back in the day.
Yeah.
I then got my first article in Men's Health, and it all just started to ripple out, and my personal brand kind of, I'll say, exploded in the niche kind of side of sort of nutrition and fitness.
Yeah. And were you thinking then in terms of the product, going, okay, we've done services, we've done coaching, were you looking for a product play, or was that just out of adversity that came about?
No, I think at the back of my mind, I knew that a product play long term can be a very lucrative, but it's a very long game. You've got to invest a lot to get there.
True.
So I kind of knew that. I was kind of comfortable with it because I had a profitable company. So I was like, actually, I'm happy to put 100k across and sort of kick this off, so to speak. But I've just got a high appetite for risk. I like opportunity. I like, I suppose, the game of business.
Right.
I like being able to like, okay, how does this work? How do we figure it out? Like, and I was just happy to launch myself into it. And because I saw a market that was ready for trust and clarity and integrity, I was like, actually, I feel very confident going into the market that we have a differentiator in the market.
Right. Okay. And did you ran both side by sides parallel?
Yeah, under an umbrella company.
Right. Still now, or just did you dial down the
the nutrition education company I sold at the back end of 2024.
Okay.
I think.
So what were the lessons out of exiting that?
That I should have exited 3 years before it when I knew I should have exited.
That's interesting. So why did you know you should have exited at that point? Like, what were the trigger signs for you?
That I'd started to lose interest.
Right.
That I knew that Awesome Supplements was the company that was going to propel me from just a general commercial point of view.
Yeah.
It just had the wider legs in the marketplace.
Yep.
I'd also been doing the nutrition education thing for like 10 years. And I was like, I'm evolving, I'm changing.
Yeah.
So inside I knew, in my intuition, I was like, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting down with the team. I remember this meeting clearly, and I said, I want to do this. And they sort of convinced me that there's so much opportunity. We could go abroad, we could do this. And I kind of like was like, oh, okay. And I just felt myself somewhat dying performing those tasks of growth, because I'm like, my soul is not in this anymore.
Yeah.
And the soul aspect of business is so important, because you can do things that did light you up 2 years ago that they just don't anymore.
Yeah.
Because your soul has grown, you've grown, you're interested in different things, you can offer more value to the marketplace. So yeah, I sold way too late and probably sold it for about 20 times less than I should have in terms of overall value.
Yeah.
And the market, like where we were positioned when I wanted to sell it, was very valuable. The value had also just slipped off the face of the planet.
Yeah, which is interesting, because I think there's a really important lesson there for everyone listening, is that if you create value, there is a moment when a business is really valuable, and it's not guaranteed to stay that way. The market moves on you, technology changes, and you got to be very clear. If your goal is to exit, be clear on the number you want to exit for. But we had Ken on the podcast, and Ken talked about the fact that it's often when that light inside goes out about something, that I often talk about the fact that when the passion leaves, this is only a question before the profit follows, because if you're not passionate about something, it's hard to really push it.
Yep.
And there's that entrepreneurial spark that's just, if it gets dimmed, it's just not the same. It's not the same place. You're not as creative, you're not as innovative, you're not and that filters through. And I think it's interesting the number of times I've spoken to sort of clients who've been talked out of something they knew they should do intuitively by their team, who didn't want the change, to be honest, or just couldn't see it. They could just see what they saw in terms of operational day-to-day stuff, but they couldn't see the vision, or they couldn't see the shift in the market coming. And I think sometimes one of the biggest lessons is for an entrepreneur to learn when to quit, and what to get out of, and go, that's not working anymore, time to change it. And I've had it in my own business where we walked to, we closed one of our masterminds 2 years ago, because it just felt like it had done its time, and we needed to innovate and do something different. And it's hard to do that without space, the vacuum, you have to have space to be able to create something new, but that also means you got to turn something off.
Yep.
Which is scary, right?
Yep.
That's scary.
Fear creeps in.
Yeah.
But that's where, as a business owner, I think time like CEO days, meditation, time in nature, holidays, they're almost work in and of itself as a CEO, because you need the space. Like, you're not going to find that space in the office with your team. You need to be in a different environment, thinking differently. You need to let all the to-do lists kind of like melt off you and be like, right, now I can start to listen and start to pay attention. And of course, I'll listen to data and I'll get opinion and I'll see what the market's doing. But as a CEO, you have this kind of felt sense of what the market needs, what there is appetite for. And that is the beauty of quite often where innovation comes from. It's the sense that we have within our soul to be like, this is what I think people need.
Do you schedule that time? Are you sort of religious with how you plan it in, or is it more I feel I need some downtime now?
It's a bit of both.
Right.
It's never reactive. Like I never get to a point where I'm like, I need this. So I only work like 20, 25 hours a week. That gives me a lot of space. I'm also a parent of 2 young kids. So if I don't create that time, I'm never going to get it. So I have very strong boundaries with my work. But every morning I get up at least an hour to an hour and a half before my kids. And usually on that morning time, I will meditate. I'll be in the garden barefoot. I'll be reading. I might be journaling. I might do breath work. I call it flow time. It's like my time to tune into my body and say, what do I need right now? And some days I will get up and I'll work.
Yeah.
Like there's a big project on that I'm excited about and I want to build. Like this morning I woke up and I was doing my slides for the event tomorrow. It's an important thing. That's where my brain was. But the day before that, I did 45 minutes of meditation because it was something that I wanted to explore. That so I committed the time for that. I get out in nature quite a bit. This year I'll go on 11 holidays. Like there's a lot of space in my diary to feel through things and get clarity.
I think there's a lot of people listening to this who are struggling maybe with the idea of 1 or 2 holidays, let alone 11. How have you set that up with the team so that they understand you're not, and when you are available and when you're not available?
It's my business.
Yeah.
So I run it like I want, to be honest. I used to have a high, like that kind of feeling like I need to be there. I need to be setting the standard.
Yeah.
But I grafted really long and really hard and nearly buried myself, with my health to build the business that they have. And there has to be a certain, acceptance in a way that I do kind of get to do what I want because I am the CEO and I did build it the way I want to.
And freedom was one of the goals. Thank you.
Freedom is the goal.
Yep.
And if they kind of don't like that, then, but for me in my company, no one, like I have no idea how much any of my staff work. Zero idea. My COO probably does. But it's because we look at performance. Like my COO, it has certain KPIs, certain net profit targets, etc. If I sit down with her and it's all going in the right direction, I have 0 questions for her. I'm like, you're doing a great job, carry on. I don't know if she's worked 20 hours, 30 or 60. So I think because I'm not watching their clock, they're not watching my clock.
Yeah.
And there'll be some weeks I might pull a 40-hour week, like now and again, but a lot of the time I am working a 20, 25-hour week. But that's the life I worked hard to build because I want freedom with my kids and to live my life the way I want to.
Yeah. And it's also a difference, I think, creative time. If you're in the flow in creative time, you can do a lot in 3 or 4 hours. You can churn out an awful lot if you're in that creative zone, which I think other people sometimes struggle with. The other thing I always find is interesting is that I think how many times we as business owners default to living a Monday to Friday life because that's what the team lives. Whereas for me, Sunday mornings, go to the gym, work, Sue goes for a swim, we have breakfast out. And then that space for me is like, I love that next 3 hours when we get home because it's a really creative time for me and there's no inbounds, there's nothing around. Whereas for me, I can create probably a day or two's worth of content or various different things that I'm working on in that 3 hour, that block.
Yep.
And I like that. Why do you think so many people feel guilty about taking time away from their business?
Fears.
Of what?
Fears that they won't make it, fears that they won't be successful, fears that they won't be enough. So in the last couple of years on my kind of own personal journey, I've been working quite hard on everything that's been in my subconscious because you have these plans of like, right, I'm going to switch off at 5 o'clock. I'm not going to look at my email. And then you're at home eating your dinner and all of a sudden you're checking your email. And it's almost like, how did that even happen? Like there's this subconscious loop. And I started to kind of inquire into that. And it's like, well, I feared that maybe if I didn't act quickly enough, I might lose the client or like, whatever. So I think it's really important to analyze those compulsions because those compulsions will be your prison. If you go on holiday and you can't switch off, like that's a real problem. Like, why can't you switch off?
Yeah.
Well, you've got a fear of something, or you don't trust your team, or you haven't got the right kind of systems in your business and stuff. And I've done a lot of work to kind of explore that, because for us to live freely in the way that we want to, we have to be free of our fears. And I realized that I had a lot of them.
When was the moment that you realized that was a blocker then for you, that you needed to shift those?
So I remember I was, in 2020, I got very ill. And so I got long COVID, which is a form of chronic fatigue syndrome. And I had a therapist.
Were you shocked? Were you surprised when that happened?
Yeah, because I'd always considered myself a healthy and fit guy.
Yeah.
And I had like quite a Superman complex at that time.
Right.
And that meant that I would push myself harder than the human body was long-term capable to sustain.
Right.
So I was like, well, I eat really well and I sleep pretty well, so I can do rugby, every other day, get in the gym, push myself, work 16-hour days. And the reality was I couldn't. At some point, people have their breaking point.
Yep.
And I remember I was on the phone to my therapist, and I can't remember what she said, but I had this realization that there was a lot inside of me that I was scared to unpack. And I knew deep down, or there was this sense that if I didn't go down that road and unpack all the things that I was scared of,
right,
I felt that I would lose my edge.
Right.
And I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs that have this same feeling, because deep down, like the fear of failure, or the fear of, not making it, or whatever that is, however it constructs itself in your head, is a very powerful driver. I built my business in many ways through the fear of not being enough, not being successful. And that is a very powerful driver, because, if you're sitting around not doing a lot, you'll be like, well, I'll work, because that fear is eating away at the back of your subconscious. And I remember being on the phone to my therapist, and she said something and the penny just dropped. And I said, I either live in this state, and ultimately I'd built my prison. For me, I made myself ill. And it was in that moment I was like, okay, I've got the strength to walk this path. And it's a very long road. But on the other side of fear is opportunity and love. And I love what I do. Business holds unlimited abundance and opportunity. And operating from a place of opportunity and love for yourself and what you do in the market and your customers and building businesses is way more fulfilling than doing it from a place of fear.
Yeah, well, that's a powerful shift. How's that shown up in terms of behaviors, in terms of how you shifted? Is that just a time thing that was that when you started putting boundaries around things, or where was where was the business at when that shift happened for you?
Business was probably at about 1.2 million.
Right.
And I wouldn't say yet the business it's had a exponential effect on the business. I would say it's starting to have that kind of effect energetically.
Right.
Because ultimately fear shows up in a certain way energetically. So does love.
Yeah.
So does opportunity, abundance, and people feel that. When I used to lead my business in a very fearful state, I was very controlling. I wanted to know about everything that was said, all the different reports I was in, all the meetings. And that was when I was working 70 hours a week, because I was putting myself in the middle of everything. Yeah. And that meant I was trying to control outcomes. So I'd be in a marketing meeting and the team would be talking about something. And then I thought they had the best idea. So now I had to carry the idea through because it was my idea. And all of a sudden I was at the center of execution and stuff.
So that's coming from ego, do you think? Is that
hugely?
Is that massively just ego?
Yeah, well, ego is our false self. It's the stories that have been built through our childhood and our young adulthood. So I was very chaotic. My team used to hate it. So we'd have a meeting on a Monday. We'd agree, the week's actions or whatever. And then I've been on some marketing course on Thursday and I come in on Friday morning. I'm like, right, screw up the marketing plan. Like, we're doing this now. And all the staff are sitting there going, again. And I don't know how so many staff kind of stayed with me, because I've had pretty good retention over the years, to be honest. But yeah, like they used to hate it. And if you were to sit down and interview my COO now, I think she'd say he's a radically different man. I'm trusting of people, allow people to, follow through with what they need to do in their job roles. I'm not controlling at all. And I think all of that has allowed me to step back and be in the position that I'm in I'm involved in like 2 meetings a week in my business. The rest of my role is in kind of MPD and a little bit of marketing in terms of like long-term strategic direction. And that's it. That's the involvement of in my business. And then anything extra on top is usually like promotional. So I might go to an event and talk, or doing a podcast, or, writing some stuff.
When did you hire the COO?
She's been with me. She's my first ever staff member.
Really?
Yeah. So she came on as like my PA admin-y type person when I was kind of a coach, and we were launching the education company, and then she just sort of grew with the business. And luckily for me, she has a good growth mindset, willing to grow on the journey as well. And now she's, often telling me to get out of the way. Like, we don't need you, get out of the way. We've got this, team's fine. Here's your monthly report. Like, crack on.
And what would be your advice to people who are resisting hiring a COO? Because I think it's one of the biggest. I think it's one of the biggest things. I think there's 2 massive hires that will change most CEOs' life. One, when you have a really good executive assistant, PAEA, but like an executive assistant, not an outsourced person, in a different part of the world. I'm talking about somebody who really knows how to manage your time and keep stuff off your plate. I think that person is like one of the best hires you can make.
Agreed.
Certainly when you're around 1 million, I think that's an accelerator.
Yep.
And then I think the next one is when you hire a COO, you properly invest in a COO. I think that'll double the business, I think, when you bring on a really good COO. And it will free up a load of your time to create expansion opportunities, to create partnerships, to, look at acquisitions, all the other things that could potentially, fulfill the vision. But I think it's interesting how a lot of entrepreneurs resist that COO, or don't even know where to start looking for it, really.
I think a good COO will often tell you what you need. So when I gave my COO enough permission and width to be like, what does the business need? She was like, cool, I already know. I've been waiting for you to give me permission for that.
Really interesting. Okay, right.
But you've been too busy being chaotic and controlling and etc. A capable CEO, that's their job. To come in and bring organization, coherency, strategic direction, and allow everyone around them to feel like the business has control and order. I used to come in and be like, no, that's important. And she's like, and she's now moving the business because I feel it's important. So I think, even writing a list of like all of the things that frustrate you from an organizational point of view, all of the weak points in the business, that's a great starting point. And then when you frame the question initially as like, what are they kind of worried about? What are they scared of? Well, put those things down, and also be honest with the CEO that you're hiring. Like, I bear all to my COO. So I say, I quite often am fearful of this. And she's like, great. I'll build a report in a way that alleviates that fear for you. And as I've communicated that to her, she can then provide that to me.
Nice.
Whereas a lot of CEOs might keep that fear hidden because they see it as a weakness. But then that fear is eating away at them, and then they're trying to be controlling of the COO, and then the COO is like, hang on a minute, like, why are you up my ass about this? Because they haven't explained that they have a kind of a bit of a fear around this. So I think being really honest and having really beautiful dialogue with your executive team is just so important, because you're human and they can only help you as much as you allow them to help you.
Yeah, so true. I often think the danger sides of the CEO, the positive way of looking at that job title is, you're about creating expansion opportunities. The negative way of looking at it is that you create chaos. You run from ego, and you just operationally you cause operational nightmares everywhere. And I think, like, you have to make a decision as to whether you want to be an inwardly facing CEO or an outwardly facing CEO. And I think one of the things that holds a lot of growth, in my experience, companies wanting to scale, when I'm working with them is they get stuck in the, but I want to know what everyone's doing. I want to know what everyone's happening. And it's like, well, that worked when you were maybe a 1 million, 2 million pound company. But if you want to be a 10, 15, 20 million pound company, you can't know everything. It's physically not possible. And also that's going to become the constraint on the business because everything now has to be going through you, and you've killed the growth potential.
Yep.
Totally and utterly done that. So we went back to saying earlier, I took you off track a bit, but you were sort of saying you got long COVID. So that was what, 2020?
Yep, November 2020.
And just, I mean, talk us through what that's like, because I mean, a lot of it gets talked about, and I think unless we know someone who's had that experience, like, what is that like? Like,
yeah, I woke up the day after a charity event, and that charity event was essentially the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was depressed, despondent, I was aching, I was fatigued, I was just really low, had no motivation, chronic migraines, a lot of pain. And yeah, I mean, that went on for a good 14, 15 months. That was my like physical recovery period. But then what I noticed is that while I really improved my physical function, I hadn't really improved my mental or emotional function. And that period had really tuned me in to the fact that we are not just a physical body, we're a mental and an emotional and an energetic body as well.
Yeah.
And it started to make me really view health in a totally different way, because I'd only ever focused on the physical body. That was just my domain: nutrition, sleep.
Yeah.
But then I got better and I was like, but I'm not better. And then there was, of course, other medical things that were going on. For example, long COVID had left me with testosterone deficiency. And if a man has testosterone deficiency, they have low mood, they're depressed, they've got poor recovery, erectile dysfunction, etc. The big thing is depersonalization with low testosterone in men. So it feels like you're living outside of your body. So you don't really experience joy. Like you are really, quite miserable. So that was a big thing that I had to overcome as well. But there was just a huge mental and emotional piece within that as well. So I just started to do a lot of other therapeutic things to improve my overall health. And I'm very grateful for that experience, because it's totally reframed what health looks like now, and how we need to kind of care for ourselves on an ongoing basis. It's not just about the physical body.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because I think a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs are happy to invest in trainings, masterminds, coaching, those kind of things, but maybe a lot of them don't. I mean, I was recently at the Health Optimization Summit in London.
Yes.
And actually what's interesting is the amount of clients who were there, but also the amount of people running businesses who were there that you're just networking, talking to, and they're kind of realizing that actually investing in their health is actually one of the best returns they can get.
Yep.
Because if, I had a client recently I went to see, and he had challenges with his shoulder and stuff, and I was like, well, have you seen anybody? Have you got it? Yeah, you got nerve pin. Have you seen someone about it? And he was like, oh, I'm too busy, I've got this going. I was like, wait, stop. Get on the phone, book a session right now with someone to look at that this afternoon, this evening, because you are the single most important thing in the business. And if you're in pain, you're going to make bad decisions all day if you're distracted by a massive amount of pain. And it just stopped him in his tracks, because he was like, well, I haven't really thought about it like that. I was like, my job is to be here. I was like, no, your job is to be well, first of all, and then your job is to be here second. And if you're not well, you can't serve the team, you can't serve the customers. And got an appointment at 5 o'clock, and then guess what? By 6 o'clock, he's feeling a whole lot better about himself and life, and the pain's massively reduced. And you go, sometimes I think people, we wait too long. I certainly did. I waited till it got serious before I changed. Why do you think most of us wait until it's critical before most of us tend to address that?
I think firstly, the changes for a lot of people are quite gradual. So if you start sleeping badly, you slowly become someone that's like a bit more tired and a bit more groggy, and your kind of executive function just slowly deteriorates. And then you kind of don't really see it. Like if you go to sleep tonight and you only slept 3 hours, you'd wake up tomorrow feeling pretty horrendous. You're like, wow, I feel that. But if you just slept like 6 hours 15, 6 hours 15, 6 hours 10, and just slowly had this attrition in function, you wouldn't quite notice it. And then there's this day where, boom, like something bad happens. You're like, oh wow, like I'm in an absolute mess, and you just haven't noticed that deterioration. It's like weight gain. Like you gained a pound, and then all of a sudden you've put the trousers on and gone, I've gained 1.5 stone. Like, what happened? And it's just that kind of attrition. So I think that's one thing, just the gradual changes, and then something just almost kind of like
to spot that
punches you in the face. Yeah. I think it's hard to spot that if you're not paying attention to it.
True.
And I think it's important for us to have metrics in place where we check in with ourselves. And it might be real simple things like you weigh yourself once a week. You've got a smartwatch that checks your heart rate and various other metrics. Like, I can see you're wearing an Oura ring. Like, for me, I love my Oura ring in terms of like looking at my general trend in stress metrics. I think that's a very powerful trend. So having these checks in place, like, you know, in the gym, like, you know, can you run a 5K in under 25 minutes? Like, it's probably quite a good thing to have a basic level of cardiovascular strength and strength. But if you're not engaged in that, then you're not going to see it. And I would argue for a lot of business owners, they're not investing the time because they're so busy dying on the sword of business. And I would then try and unpack that, because I'll sit, like, I coach many entrepreneurs now, and I sit there in front of them and they'll talk to me about success. And so many of them cannot articulate what success means to them. It's just kind of like this arbitrary like thing where it's kind of like more money, and one day they'll get more time and there'll be a certain amount of recognition to that. And I'm like, no, what is it? Like, what is success? And some of the people that I have the most respect for in business, they're running like £1 million business. It's doing really good. They're running at 20% profit. The family's taken over 150k a year. They've got cars on the business. They're going on 8 holidays a year. They've got time to watch all their kids' sports and all that kind of thing. And they're just like cruising. They're happy. They feel successful. I'm like, I have so much respect for that.
Totally, 100%.
Where there's so many people that are pushing and pushing and pushing, and you just tap them and go, by the way, what are you pushing for? Because you just told me that you've got no time, you sleep badly, you're overweight, like all of these things, but you're dying on the sword of business.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And so many people cannot tell me why.
There's an exercise that I do on when we do retreat and take people away, and this is one of the reasons why we take people away once a year for 4 days, because I think physically, if you put people on a plane, take them to a different environment, they disconnect from the habits. That's one thing. And secondly, then you can ask some questions that actually require a detailed sort of level of thinking. And one of my questions is, you know, write on the top of a piece of paper, I'll be happy when, and then give you, you know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of just time to just fill in the what is the answer to that question. I'll be happy when, you know, when I wear this much weight, when I make this much money, and how many of those are society imposing those on you? Point one. Two, how many of those are things that actually, if you got them, would they really make you happy? Really? Like, you know, I remember talking to somebody, and I remember this story vividly because he had one of these goals. Was, I'll be happy when I've got a brand new Bentley, you know, and hit a certain financial goal in his life, bought himself a brand new Bentley. It's fine. I remember him and I having a coaching session about 2 weeks after he bought it, and I was all, you know, oh, how's the car? How's it amazing? Yes, I'm selling it. I was like, I'm sorry, what? You just bought the thing. He goes, I hate it. I said, what do you mean you hate it? He said, well, I turn up at hotels and things, and because it's a Bentley and they stick it out the front and it gets loads of attention, and it's just not me. It's not me. And I was like, isn't it? It's interesting how we can sometimes completely and utterly set ourselves up by going, oh, I'll be happy when I've got that. You get it, and then you go, oh, this isn't happy at all. And I was reading something the other day I thought was fascinating about this, is that one of the reasons why a lot of entrepreneurs don't achieve as much as they could is because they're worried that if they achieve it, they've then got to go and achieve the thing after it. So think about it like this. There is a part of our brain that once we achieve something, we get a dopamine hit for a period of time, right? Like, it's usually quite short when you achieve something. But then what happens is our brain intuitively then goes, well, what's next? And some of us get to a stage where we're running a business where we don't want to have to deal with the what's next thing. It's like, I don't want to have to go again. I don't want to have to go higher. I don't want to have to. So we actually put off trying to achieve the thing we say we want. Not because we don't want that, but because we don't want what our brain is going to do to us afterwards, which I thought was fascinating, because I'm like, I can remember times where I've pushed really hard. Remember really early on in my coaching career, I remember one year where I was up for an award, won Coach of the Year in the organisation I was in. And I remember going on stage and being happy picking up the award. And I remember coming off stage, and between coming off stage and getting back to the table we were sat at, feeling absolutely crushed, exhausted, and like, oh God, I've got to go do it all again next year. Just this overwhelming sense of that's over, and now I've got to do it again if I want to get that same feeling of going up and getting that dopamine hot. And I just remember literally people coming up and going, oh, congratulations or whatever. And I felt awful. It felt terrible. And I just remember thinking, this isn't healthy. This is not healthy, because I'm now, I feel like I've got to get back on the treadmill for another year just to get the award, to feel good for the 2 or 3 minutes of picking up the award and that dopamine hit, without really understanding that was what was going on, really. So did you, when you come back to the COVID piece, was it a gradual transition out of it then, or like was it a number of protocols you put in place that shifted that, or?
Oh, it was a long journey. So the physical recovery was like 14, 16 months. And then the kind of testosterone journey was like a kind of year and a half. And then the kind of mental, emotional work that I was doing alongside that afterwards, I'd say the full recovery period. So I look at, when I got long COVID, I look at the journey from long COVID to fully healthy as me getting physically well, then mentally well, then emotionally well. And a big part of that was deconstructing my ego, which was a big part of my kind of driving force in business. So that like end to end was like 3.5, 4 years of a lot of work. And fortunately I was in a position business wise where, you know, I would honor what I needed to do, and I'd be like, oh, I'm taking half the day off. I'm going to visit my therapist, or going to do a session on this or whatever. I'm going to London or whatever. And I invested a huge amount of time and money into it, but it was invaluable. It was my health. I was like, I can't even get out of bed and like play with my kids. Like this, you know, I don't want to be that dad. Like I was highly motivated.
Yeah. Interesting. Anything you did that was sort of slightly unusual that had a positive impact in there?
Tons. I've done a lot of trauma release therapy, a lot of energy healing, Reiki, meditation, breath work, psychedelics. I've done a lot. Yeah.
And what do you say to people who struggle with meditation? I find that hard. I find the slowing down to do that quite hard. Just, I can do a bit of it, but I genuinely find that quite a challenge to do that bit. Well, how do you sort of encourage someone to get started on that journey?
So meditation for me, initially the problem is my perception of what meditation was.
Okay.
So I would sit down and I'm like, oh God, to be a good meditator, I've got to like clear my thoughts. No, the art of meditation is observing yourself, starting to understand yourself. And don't get me wrong, my journey with meditation has gone from an incredibly busy mind to an incredibly clear, happy, non-negative mind. Like there's not a single negative thought in my brain anymore. There's not a single fear loop. I don't get stuck anymore in kind of like a cycle of thought. Like all of that's gone.
Wow.
But I had to deconstruct my ego and work a lot on my subconscious to achieve that state. But like when I coach my clients, for example, nearly all of my clients have meditation in their routine, and you usually have to get to like the 2 or 3 week mark for them to start to go, oh, okay, I kind of get what I'm doing now. I'm simply observing what's going on, so I can then use that information to do something about it. So for example, I've got a client who had a bit of a bad breakup, and it was a very recurring thought in his meditation, not just in his meditation, in his daily life. Now this guy's a leader of a pretty large company. Like for him to have that thought replaying in his mind through a lot of his daily actions, that's going to inhibit his performance mentally and emotionally. So I was like, we need to stop running away from that. We need to look to deal with that. That can't be an ongoing thought. So if you sat down in meditation and you're like, oh, I'm really struggling with sitting still. Cool. Why?
Yeah.
And then that's where the work is, because we're starting to understand, why can't I sit still? Like if you and me took a walk and we sat on the top of a hill and I closed our eyes and you couldn't afford yourself the space to just enjoy nature for 30 minutes, that's where the work is. Of like, why can't I enjoy this? It should be human to be able to go into nature and just enjoy it.
Yep.
Oh, this is blissful, amazing. Oh no, I feel like I should be at work. Why? And for me, that's where I started to realize that's where the work was. And I was essentially avoiding the work. Oh, it's too uncomfortable being in meditation. No, actually, sir, that's showing you where you need to do the work on yourself.
I love that insight. I don't think I've had anyone explain it that way, actually. Yeah, that's Yeah, I think that's really an interesting way to look at it, is if you can't stop, why? I remember I had a client who he wouldn't leave the office before anybody else in the building. He had to be the last one out and the first one in. And I'm like, why? Just like, you've built this management team. And most of the time he would sit there from 4 to 6 doing nothing because there was nothing to do, because he'd built a really great management team. And it's like, yeah, but I can't be seen to be leaving. So, well, why? Well, they'll think less of me. Honestly, they won't notice if you walk out at 4 o'clock, or they'll be really happy you've walked out at 4 o'clock. It's like there was just a story he was telling himself about why he couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So just have a conversation with the team. Just ask the team, are they okay if you leave at 4 o'clock if you're done? And they all looked at him like he was weird, like,
Yeah.
they were, yeah, it's your business. Go. If you're like, in fact, you know what? We'd rather you didn't come in on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, because actually you're really not the best version of yourself those days. So go off, do something else, or whatever day it was. Like, we had a habit of like going in on, I think it was a Monday, and just being grumpy all Monday morning. And they were like, could you just like maybe come in at lunchtime on a Monday? Because you're just not, it's not good for the rest of us. And it was sort of liberating for him to have that conversation. No, we don't actually need you around. Like, that's in your head. And we're both, by the way, we're really busy doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And it'd be fascinating to look at his job spec now.
Yeah.
Like, my job spec is, a big thing is it about strategic development of the business, new product development.
Hang on a second. What does that mean? So unpack what that means you do then.
So I'm helping my CEO with like where we're seeing our opportunities, what the data is showing, where we think the market's going to go, whether we want to lean into certain product lines, whether we think product lines are redundant. So kind of navigating the data. I'm then constantly looking at the market from an MPD point of view, what's coming out in the world of nutrition, do we want to innovate in certain kind of places, and then being a brand advocate. So they're kind of like not quite my KPIs. The rest of the team have a set of KPIs. But those are the things that the team are going to operate with in the future. So if I bring a new product into the market, that's what they're then going to be responsible to kind of launch. So with, your kind of friend, your client, like, I'd be fascinated to know, like, what is your job spec right now?
Yeah.
If you're doing these things and it's not in your job spec, then you can free yourself of the need to do those things, because that's what we're judging you on.
Yeah.
That's what the team are judging you on. That's what they expect from you. And whether you do it in 2 hours or 4 hours, like, doesn't matter. That's what the team need from you.
Yeah. I had a coaching call in the last week or so with a client of mine who said he's just got back from a 3-week holiday, and he said, I lay on the beach or wherever he was lying on the sun lounger, and he said, and I just sat there for a week and thought, how do I grow the business next? Like, what's the next big move? Which is a really interesting question to ask your subconscious for a week. And he said, so I've just had this big idea and I want to run it by you, see what you think, and sanity check it. And about half an hour into this conversation, I just looked at him and said, do you realise that'll probably 4x the value of the business in 2 years if you do that? And he was like, you think? I was like, yeah, I definitely think, in terms of like the balance sheet value of the business is going to 4x if you can make that, if you can pull that off the way you're looking at it. It's a game changer for the business, right? You'll be the biggest in the industry. That'll 4x the valuation on exit. And he was like, okay, that was worth going away then for a couple of weeks. I was like, yeah, exactly. Because I think when you're, I say all the time that your next big innovation won't come while you're sat behind the desk. No. You can't force that. I love the way, Coldplay always talk about when they have songs, and songs are downloaded from wherever songs come from. And I think it's true with ideas for entrepreneurs. Like, they're downloaded to you, but if you're too busy for the download to come in, if there's no space, it's very hard for you to get that next breakthrough idea. And it was just the power. And he was sort of really reflecting, okay, that's interesting. So I wasn't doing anything. And I think a lot of us get trapped, partly because we're underfunded when we start our businesses, that we do everything. And therefore, we have the mindset of, I'll just do it myself because I know how to do it myself. I remember I was fortunate enough to be on stage with Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth early in my career. And I remember him saying in one of the presentations he gave about the best thing you could do is actually start a business you know nothing about, because you couldn't do it. He said, so like if you went and started a hairdressing business and you weren't a hairdresser, you would have to hire people to do those jobs because you couldn't do it. And I've always thought that's a really interesting sort of paradigm, is that we tend to start a business that we're passionate about because we love doing it. And then that actually becomes the constraint, that because we can do it, we can jump in and do that. And actually then becomes the thing that holds the business back. rather than the thing that frees it, which is sort of interesting. I also think a lot of people don't really understand what the job title CEO is. I've had clients of mine have gone, well, what does that mean I should be doing then? And I think that's always that differential between CEO and COO. I suppose Traction talks about it as the visionary and the implementer is their version of talking about that. But for me, that's if you realize that your job is to drive the vision, hold the culture, which is the other thing I think CEOs are really important for doing, is holding the culture. I think that's critical. To hold the vision, keep the faith, build the culture. The three things I often say to clients is like, hold the vision, keep the faith, build the culture. It's like you just that's kind of the three things that you're really responsible for.
Yeah.
And also I think it's a shift as you get bigger as an organization, your responsibilities have to shift to reflect that. And I think the other thing I think is also challenging is that sometimes as the organization gets bigger, we get less dopamine hits.
Totally. Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's a hard thing to navigate sometimes.
I think it's good to recognize that in yourself though, because if you enjoy that, you can then start to say, okay, well, I'm not getting that in my current job. How do I do that? How do we change things?
Yeah.
Like right now I'm the CEO of my business, but I don't actually think I should be the CEO of my business.
Okay.
And I'm quite excited for the journey of my business where I don't have to be, because I know that I'm not the best person for it. The best thing that I can be involved in is new product development, which I'm already involved in, keeping a hand in that, and being the brand advocate, being the person that is like the energy and the kind of front man of the business, because I live and breathe it. And that's really what I want my sole job to be. And I'm really excited for that kind of moment. And I know it will come on our journey. We're looking to raise, we're kind of, going on the journey where we really want to push things. And I also have no ego attachment to that title. Like, I don't care if people call me the founder or the CEO or whatever. You can call me the guy that made a protein if you want. Like, I have zero attachment to it, because my business is an opportunity vehicle. Don't get me wrong, but I want to live a life of freedom. And that means I want to be free in my business. I don't want to turn up on a Monday and go, oh, I've got 6 hours of these meetings I have like no interest in. It's my business. I shouldn't feel like that. Now, don't get me wrong, we've all got to go through journeys in the business. There's periods where you do have to do things that you kind of don't want to do.
Absolutely.
But like, I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast and are clients of yours and stuff, they're pretty well established in business.
Yep.
They have the opportunity to be like, I shouldn't be doing that job. I'm not best placed for it. This is where I think I should be in the business. Great, let's do that.
Yep. I also think it plays into something I talk about. Before you scale up, you've got to level up, right? Which is level up your thinking, level up your role, level up your identity, which is, I think, is one of the biggest things. Is if you see yourself as an operator, you're always going to be stuck in the business. If you see yourself as an owner, you're going to shift your behavior. And then the next piece of the journey is to see yourself as an investor. When you start to look at it and go, okay, this business is one of my assets in my asset portfolio. How's it performing as an asset? In terms of, is it generating me good cash? Is it generating me? Is the value of the business going up? Is the shares I have in this going up as a value play? And I also think as you start to move from that 1 to 5 category, you start to look at the balance sheet more and start to go, okay, great. Actually, I've sorted out the cash flow personally. I need to be building the balance sheet value of the business, so that whether I'm going to do a raise or I want to do acquisitions or I want to exit again at some point I need to realize that value. And therefore, I've got to start thinking in terms of that as at least 3 years ahead.
Yeah, I had a coaching session with someone about 9 months ago, and that was the reframe he gave me that changed quite a bit for me. He said, you need to start to think like an investor in this business, investor and brand advocate. And I was like, I'd never thought of it like that. And it just made me really stand back and go, actually, I don't need to be in this business. It's established. The product line's established. The market knows. We're doing good stuff. And that was,
to use your phrase, it's an awesome business.
Yes, it is. And that gave me permission to step right back. Write a plan for me to drop back even more, and go back into kind of coaching and what I love to do, which is helping people transform.
So, in terms of the vision of what you're trying to build next, actually, there's 2 or 3 things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the products that you sell at the moment. So, curiosity, what's the best-selling products?
Awesome Hydrate.
Really?
Our electrolyte blend, yeah.
Okay. Why do you think that is? It's just people are being aware. Like, firstly, how important are electrolytes, and why do most people not?
Well, our tap water no longer has electrolytes in it because we don't drink from like streams and rivers and that kind of stuff, and they naturally have minerals and electrolytes in it. So it's really important from a optimizing hydration point of view. A lot more people are exercising, becoming active. You lose electrolytes in your sweat when you exercise. Why has it become popular for us? It's a fairly low cost product, so it's market accessible. But the differentiator for us is a lot of the hydration products in the market don't taste very good because they're in effervescent tablets.
Right.
And you have to put certain compounds in them that make it fizz and turn into kind of like a drink.
Okay.
And that gives it this kind of like weird background kind of taste that can be quite hard to mask. And we went down the powder route. So our kind of electrolyte blends kind of taste like drinking like a really nice squash, really zesty kind of squash. And that's what's helped us really stand out in the marketplace.
Cool. And let's talk all things, what would be some of the other ones that sell really well for you?
Our protein product. Again, it's the standout thing is taste and quality. So
right.
We use a base of organic pea. Most companies don't use organic.
Okay.
And then the taste, a lot of plant proteins taste like, they're a bit kind of grainy, a bit earthy. The flavor's like there, but it's not.
Yeah.
Ours tastes like drinking like a hot chocolate. We've really gone to town on the taste, and that's, again, made it really stand out in the marketplace.
And what about creatine?
I mean, creatine's a very basic product. Like,
right.
We just can't stand out there. Also, the data is, very established in that creatine monohydrate, like, pretty much works the best. It's very cheap. So we sell it, but we're not really different in any way. Everyone's selling the same kind of product.
Is it important, though, to be having it?
I think there's a huge amount of research on it. If you exercise, highly beneficial, but there's now very strong research in cognitive performance,
I've seen that.
Memory and stuff. Yep. So the marketplace is widening very rapidly into kind of older markets.
Yeah, I mean, I think I spoke to you about this before. We've been using it now for probably 2 months, I guess, maybe coming up in 2 months, and my wife started taking it probably three weeks ago, and obviously she's recovering with a brain injury, and I've seen a noticeable sort of increase just in terms of her ability to solve what I would call things she used to really struggle with. She seems to be just performing slightly better, and I'm like, well, that's interesting, because if that compounds out over a year, then you're gonna be looking at a very different kind of quality of life. Things that she would not have attempted before she is attempting.
Great.
And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because the only thing we've changed in all of your protocols and everything you take every day is we've added creatine every day. That's all we've done, is to add that. And you seem to be happy to tackle things that before you would just have not done. So I think it's kind of interesting, especially as you get older. I believe it's really powerful for memory, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So like with all of these things, I'd say to people, like, take it for 2 months. I find quite often a month is not quite long enough for some compounds.
Okay.
Also, creatine takes quite a while to super saturate the tissues in your body, so you're not going to see a huge benefit for a couple of weeks. So give it 2 months, and then what's the worst that's happened? You've spent like 45, 50 quid to like find that out. So I always think it's worth playing around with these things and just trying to really tune into what the signals are in your body of what's improving or, staying negligible.
For anyone listening, you've very generously given a code to get 15% off, I think.
Yes.
To anyone listening to the podcast. The code is CEO15.
CEO15.
Which is great. We'll drop the code below as well. But if you want to check it out, and they should go to best place,
awesomesupplements.co.uk.
Awesomesupplements.co.uk. Drop the link below in the show notes as well. But CEO15 gives you a discount code if you want to go and try any of those products next. What are you excited about in the business next?
New product and how the market responds to it. That always is an exciting thing for me, because I'm providing for people's kind of like health and performance. I'm excited about new team members and how they'll grow the business and what they'll bring to the company.
How big's the team now then?
I only have 2 full-time staff.
Wow.
My COO, and then kind of like ops assistant, admin, customer service. And then we have some part-time people in the Philippines. They do sort of like background admin, customer service. And then our marketing team is totally contracted. Our head of marketing is fractional, does 10 hours a week. We've got kind of like email and social 10 hours a week. Our paid marketing guy is a contractor. He does 30 hours a week. And that's because we've just found it's been quite hard to hire very good people.
Yeah.
The people that are A players that we found are quite often solo, and they want to do a couple of things.
They want to keep it that way.
Yep. We've also had quite a few bad experiences with staff. So we have a policy in the business where we'll bring a contractor in and we'll say like, right, we'll give you 3 months or whatever. If it works out, then we'll look to extend that or make it full time or whatever. And nearly everyone's like on board with that. And again, we've just found that really high quality people kind of want a bit of freedom and kind of want a bit of a say in sort of their future. So they quite like the idea of the flexibility and stuff.
I'd agree with that.
And now, I mean, I suppose you get to a certain maturity in business where you can sense when someone's not going to work out quite quickly. Like we've literally just got rid of someone about 2 weeks ago, and they were in the business 3 weeks, and then we were both like, nah, she's not the right fit. Let's go. And we'll move fast with that. And we'll, like you talked before we went on air, where a lot of business owners struggle that when staff members go, they're jumping in. We're very patient now. Like I'm not willing to jump in anymore, like because it will just always happen. Like there's quite often constantly a gap that you can fill. And sometimes in business, I know it's not the same for every business. Like, you know, for us, I'm like, okay, maybe email marketing will suffer like for the next 2 weeks while we just kind of like figure things out.
Yep.
But like, again, I'm at a point where I'm like, I'm not going to keep sacrificing my life for the business. Like if I'm running it on a knife edge, then that's probably something I need to fix before I take other moves, because if everything's always so tight that it's like, oh, I've got to go in, then I'm just being driven by this fear all the time of like, oh, if I don't do it, like, you know, we're not going to feed ourselves at the end of the month. And it's just not a place that I want to work from.
No, it's a scarcity mindset versus more of an abundance mindset, right? You can't create from a scarcity mindset, and you certainly can't create anything good anyway, that's for sure. Yeah, I think there's a definite shift now to more kind of hybrid working models, for sure. And I think you're right. And, you know, I think talented people want the ability to be anywhere. They actually want more freedom. And I think the next generation coming up, you know, want that ability to go, look, actually, I want to be in charge of my own time and where I can be. And I'm like, well, if you're working in an online space, it doesn't really matter where you are. You don't have to be in a building. I think there's quite I think you're constrained talent-wise if someone has to be in the building all the time.
Yeah, agreed.
But again, it's a cultural point, and it depends on the business. Obviously, it depends on, you know, you're an online e-commerce business, right? So, what have been some of the big, because you're just over a couple of million now and growing. So, what have been some of the biggest sort of strategic moves that you've made that's had the biggest impact to get you to that point?
We, in our early days, were a mess financially. Like we really didn't understand our numbers very well. And that's because we had another profitable company, and it just always gave us this buffer where we just didn't pay attention to the numbers. We then got in a really sticky situation, and it was all going to plummet very quickly and evaporate. So we brought in some like forensic accountants, and they like rebuilt the business financially. It cost a lot of money, but we then kind of restabilized. So that was huge strategically from us, for just really understanding the numbers and where you're at. And it was a bit of an eye-opener because our margins were way less than we thought they were, and blah, 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 blah. So that was kind of a big one. Ambassadors, I think, are always a very powerful thing for business, because you build, you're leaning into other people's trust. So, you know, per marketing pound we spend, ambassadors is one of the easiest and cheapest ways to recruit kind of into our business. You know, if people have followed you for 5 years and you go, I use this product, I really rate it, you probably don't have to tell them that 10 times. You probably have to tell them that once or twice, and they're like, okay, cool, I trust Paul. Like, great.
Yep.
So
that's really interesting, actually. So is that do you have a list of people that you want to go? Are you looking at micro influencers, or are you going for bigger influencers? Like, how do you approach that ambassador play?
Micro, right, is where it's at for us.
So it's like 2.5 to 5,000 followers, or
for us it's like kind of like 2.5 to like 20.
Okay.
20, 25, 30 above people are usually sort of on the more influencer side. They're trying to charge and that kind of stuff. Definitely depends what type of business they run.
Yeah.
Like my Instagram, for example, is like 47,000 or something. I'm not an influencer. If you came to me and were like, Ben, we want to pay you for a post, I'm like, I've no interest in that. Like if it's a good product, I'll promote it, but it's not on my purview or worth my time. These kind of sort of niche audiences where there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of depth.
Yeah.
Even like a personal trainer that's got 800 followers, but they've got 30 clients in their hometown and all of their clients like trust them. It's like they're a really great asset for us.
And they also probably are getting overlooked by everybody else.
Yeah, totally. And quite often we might be like, okay, well, we'll give you a bit of free product, see if you like it, then we'll strike up a deal, and it can be really good. Really good.
That's a really clever under the radar way of getting reach as well. So what's the raise for at the moment? What's the ambition next?
We are not fully detailed on the raise. We suspect it will be between 500 and 800 to raise. Massively increase our product depth in terms of stock depth. For nearly 4 times now over the last 3 years, we keep getting caught in the kind of cash stock marketing cycle where we just keep getting caught out. We got caught out again this summer and we've had to sit on our hands and go back 2 months because of that. So the raise is hugely for stock, also to push into some verticals that are performing quite well for us, and we really just want to drive. We feel like we've got the data to be like, okay, if we stick 50 grand into this, we think we can really accelerate kind of our growth potential. They're the 2 big things. And then investing in some newer products, which are not higher risk, but in terms of like the cash play, we have to have a certain amount of security to be like, well, if we launch into this market, can we sell 2,000 units on launch day? Okay, if we don't think that, then it's a little bit risky. So again, it's kind of having that buffer.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think people underestimate the amount of liquidity you need to scale an e-com business.
That's what I've realised.
Yeah, and we had Paul Sherratt from Glove Glue on the podcast a while back, and he's just about 3 million, just over that, and he's been through that sticky bit that you're talking about, and you do need to have an element of understanding funding and different funding options. And I think it's something that doesn't get talked a lot about. When you're scaling, is one of the skills you've got to develop. Is I talk about different money skills, but one of the money skills is firstly how to make it. That's one money skill. The other one is how to keep it, which a lot of entrepreneurs, me included, have been very bad at over the years. I'm very good at making it, and then very good at spending it and not keeping it. And then third is how to invest it, and then fourth is how to raise it and how to be able to access funds to give that growth, because you cannot do it just out of cash flow alone. So I think there's a skill of understanding what kind of debt you need. Do you need equity? Do you need, is it debt? Is it equity? Or is it JVs that you can find? Sometimes you can partner with people, or is it just a different bank that you need to move to who are more accommodating of entrepreneurial endeavor and understand the model that you're running? And certainly banks that specialize in e-com would probably, quite happily have a conversation with you, because they'd be like, okay, we get the model, we understand why you need the cash for that. So there's always that conversation of, do we need to trade? Is an equity or is it debt that's the best way to solve that particular puzzle? Again, it's just something I don't think gets talked about a lot, and it's certainly part of running, what I call a grown-up business. Is you've got to be aware that when you get to certain points of the journey, you're going to need an answer for that puzzle because it's coming. It's like, great, get to 1 million. There's some certain set of puzzles you've got to sort out, particularly customer acquisition being the main one. But then when you're going from 1 to 3 to 5, it's going to be talent acquisition. That's going to be another puzzle you got to solve out, and liquidity on some level, the acquisition of capital to fund the growth is going to be another one as well. That's that. Or you've got to re-engineer your money model so that when you acquire a customer, you'll cross-sell, upsell. That whole first kind of 30-day journey is really clearly optimized so that you're not going negative in terms of cash when you acquire a customer, which is quite often happens. So normally if you kind of sit down and go, well, actually it's a lot easier to fix that than it is usually to raise money and give away equity. And there's a couple of people I can introduce you to after the show, but yeah, certainly that was some of the ways that we helped Paul just to navigate through that without needing to give the equity away. Because you may well need it later for something that's a little bit more challenging to fix sometimes. Just depends, as again, what the vision is and where you're trying to get to. So if somebody wants to improve their performance and become more awesome as a CEO, what are your top 3 tips about where they should start with that? Where would you have them? Where would you have them look and kind of, where should they be looking to start the kind of the balance of the 380 that you talked about?
Sleep.
Okay.
And I know every entrepreneur is bored of hearing that. And they're like trying to do it. They've got a better mattress. They've got a better pillow. They've maybe even invested in a cooling bed or whatever. But I don't know about anyone else. But for me as an entrepreneur, the challenge for me was quietening my mind. A, so I could fall asleep faster. And B, so that when I woke up at 2:30, 3, whenever it is, I could get back to sleep. And I used to be the entrepreneur that would go to bed fairly early, would get to sleep within 30, 45 minutes, but I'd really struggle when I woke up at 3 a.m. The thoughts would start racing, and then you're sat there thinking, oh, I've had 5.5 hours sleep. It shouldn't be too bad. I'll get up and I'll work. And, I used to be on the caffeine treadmill, other stimulants as well. And when I cracked that, so much changed because, if you don't sleep that great, when you start to sleep great, it really is a mental, emotional, physical game changer.
Totally.
And I would implore any entrepreneur to try and crack that if you've got a hyper busy mind.
Such a cheap one, cost me £18, but has had a big impact on me. Getting a proper blackout sleep mask.
Okay.
Like I was like, because in the summer especially, blackout curtains, and I just it never really kind of quite worked for me. But it was that even if I wake up at 5. Whereas I used to go, if I get up I think your rings help with this. I used to get up at 5 and go, I'll get up now and just go do stuff. Now I go, actually, if I sleep till 6:30, that's going to move my score of my Oura-ring up by this much. I kind of know that now. But actually then at 5, the only way I could kind of quieten my mind was if I used the blackout mask, that tricks my mind into going quiet a lot quicker for me.
Yep.
Rather than just close your eyes, like put the blackout mask in, put in some meditation, sort of like some really relaxing kind of sleep type music on the earphones, and I'm gone out within 5 minutes, that's always been a challenge for me. But that one device, and I'm like, how can something so simple have such an impact? But it has.
So crack that. I'm gonna have a list of 5. I'm gonna ignore
go for the 5. Let's be awesome and overachieve.
Like really good nutrition,
right?
Like energy, mental clarity. I just think it's really important. The third one is exercise. Just from, you want strength, you want to maintain cardiovascular fitness. I think people, in my experience, that have a healthy weight are generally feeling better in themselves, especially if you're a CEO. Like, you want to feel body confident. You want to feel like you're turning up as your best self. So I think that's really important. And then the fourth thing, I'm quite bullish about being no alcohol. Alcohol is a toxin on the brain. It stays in our tissues for way longer than people think. Reduces executive function. Like, if you drink at the weekend, you are going to be probably a bit sluggish on Monday, maybe a bit of Tuesday. So I'm quite bullish on that. And then the fifth one is creating enough space for yourself so you can be at your best.
Nice.
And that might be meditation, it might be time in nature, it might be walking, but just like space. No magic is created without space. And also being able to be in touch with yourself, you need to create space. So when I get up in the morning, it is my time to check in with myself. Because if I don't have that time, my kids get up, bloody chaos. Like the day starts and it can be a lot harder to find that time. So I find that time very sacred, really enjoy it. And it allows me to inquire and see how I feel and where I'm at and where I want to be. And that day I might be like, well, I had planned to do this, but actually my energy is really over here. Or I really need to do this today, or I need to phone this person. And just having that check-in is important because we're not robots. We are humans. And so many entrepreneurs, I think, I used to do this. I'd finish the day by setting up my next day. Right, what's my calendar doing? What are my tasks? All the rest of it. And then sometimes you sit in front of your computer or whatever, and you're expecting yourself to do this thing. But your energy is just not there. Like, or one day you might wake up and you're like, I am feeling incredible today. I feel creative. I don't want to do 15 sales calls. I want to go and map that vision that me and Paul talked about. Do that. Like, have the flexibility to do that. So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, I think that's something I've often struggled with in terms of you get other people go, oh, to be successful, plan your next day the day before. And I'm with you on this. I've tried that, but at the end of the day, my brain is fatigued. I by the time I get to 6 o'clock or whatever, my brain's done, right? So cognitively seems to be an odd place to choose to then prioritize the next day. Yeah. That seems weird. Secondly, for me, I'm very much like you. If I wake up in the morning and I feel like, yeah, I'm on it today, I'm dialed in. These are the 5. I have a discipline of only 3 things a day. I'm definitely committed to getting achieved no matter what, or I'd like to attract right into the space today. Here's 3 things I'd like to kind of attract or magnify or just experience. But if I feel like, hey, I'm gonna write a couple of LinkedIn posts because I just feel completely in that flow, then I'll write them. If I feel like actually the best thing I can do is go and have a cup of coffee and sit in the hot tub with Sue and chat, because actually that's what I'm feeling my soul needs, then I'll do that. Or if I want to go to the gym and work out, then I'll do that. But I think that for me, I like being more tuned in, and then from that space I'll go, okay, that's what I want to achieve today. Against the context of a broader 90-day plan or 2-year vision or whatever. But I do find I'm more trusting that flow to grow rather than going, oh yeah, no, this is what I decided last night. I'm like, well, it depends, right?
Totally. It's exactly where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I basically have kind of like outcomes for the week.
Yeah.
There might be like 5 outcomes for the week, and I'll just go with my energy, and I trust that those outcomes will happen. I also trust that if something more important comes in as the owner of a business, something will go off the bottom of the list and I will adjust to it. And that's absolutely fine, because that's how business works.
Correct.
The only day that doesn't change is I have a client day on a Tuesday, so I coach on a Tuesday, and then the rest of the week is kind of malleable. But it's also because I have a family. So my wife might go, on Friday, the weather's going to be unbelievable. Should we go to the beach? And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll start a bit early on Thursday, work, And the great thing about being an entrepreneur is, so I have this thing, we're going to talk about it at the event tomorrow, the time game.
Okay.
So quite often you will expand your tasks into the time that you give for yourself. So I started to play this game as an entrepreneur where I would constantly reduce the amount of time that I would give myself to do a thing. And you'd be amazed sometimes at how fast you work. Like if you and me go, should we set an hour aside for a meeting? We'll probably talk for an hour. Do we need to talk for an hour? Maybe, sometimes, whatever. Sometimes it can be 20 minutes. So even reducing your team meetings down, like if I say to myself, oh, I've got this list of 10 tasks and I'm going to work 7 hours today, you will probably do this 10 tasks in 7 hours. What if I said, I'm only going to do it in 5 because I want to go with my kids to the beach?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you actually just pulled your finger out and rocketed it up.
Yeah.
Then you've gone and enjoyed.
Well, you say no. I think what it is you say no to stuff, or you eliminate distractions because you cannot. You can, the amount I had, chose to get done this morning before coming to do the podcast today was like, and I knew I needed to leave at 12, and that was that. And like the amount I got done between, sort of 8:30 and 12 was, some of the calls were 7 minutes long, because I'd go, we got 7, jump on the call with one of my team and I go, right, we got 7 minutes. What do you want to get done in 7 minutes? And people go, just give me these 2 answers. That's all I need. Okay, great. We can do that. Rather than, hey, we've got 20 minutes. What should we cover off? And then there's this massive list. It's like, look, I invented this concept with clients. I call them power calls. It's like, look, if we jump on a power call, it's 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, we can cover just about anything you can give me in 10 minutes, because it's one thing.
Yep.
You can't bring everything. We're not dealing with every issue. We're just dealing with the one thing you want that's a blocker for you right now that you want to get cleared.
Yep.
Because it forces you to do 2 things. Number one, it forces you to clearly decide what is the number one thing you actually want to solve. That's important, so you get real clarity. And number 2, then you're just focused on that, which allows me to ask you the right questions. And then secondly, to provide you with suggestions or solutions on how to solve that based on experience of what I've seen previously with other clients who've scaled or got, normally there's some element I've seen that before. And then it's similar with you in nutrition. I'm sure after a while you just go, look, I've seen all the symptoms. I know what I'm looking at. So you can get to diagnose and empower them quicker because of it. But if you give it those calls 10 minutes, people get to the end of 10-minute call and they go, oh, it's amazing, I've got everything I need, great. And I'm brilliant. Whereas if I'd gone, yeah, great, let's jump on a half-hour coaching call, we would have got to the same outcome It's just we would have spent half an hour doing it.
Yep.
And it's really interesting, just this 10-minute power call things. People go, I probably don't even need 10 minutes. I just need 5 minutes to I just got this. I need your view on it. Yeah, that's good. Do it. Don't do it. We're done. It's like, but I think it's training ourselves to go, I don't need as much time as I think I need.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said, it's not the hours you put in, it's what you put in the hours.
Yeah, totally. But we're so used to like, oh, I've got an hour's coaching call, or I've got an hour. It's like, well, actually, the coaching call should be focused on a problem.
Yeah.
Let's move the problem forward. And then it might mean that you coach less, more frequently, but with less volume. But you actually, the human brain, like if I have a coaching call with someone and I give them like 6 actions, that could feel like quite a lot. If you had a power coaching call, it's like, boom, 1 action, go away for the rest of the week, action it, like, then we'll kind of speak next week. And the momentum that you can often get is so powerful because you have clarity. You haven't overburdened your soul with this expectation that you're going to go away and solve all of these problems and implement all these things.
Yeah, I think when I first started coaching, I used to think I hadn't been a good coaching call unless I gave people like 7 things to go ahead and do. And then after a while, I realized that they'd just come back and they'd have got 3 done and they'd feel like a failure because they'd only got 3 done. And I realized, like, hang on a second, that's about me, not about them.
Yep.
Like if they need to just get 2 things done, but they're the 2 most important things done this week, then brilliant. Yeah, then they've achieved loads, right? And I think sometimes there's this more is better sort of point of view, right? Which is not necessarily always helpful, I think. In fact, less, I think, is more powerful, right?
But it also never ends because more can just be this unlimited treadmill of stuff. And I mean, I used to look at some of my to-do lists and you just think, like, that's so overwhelming. It's like 27 things on my to-do list for this week. Like, but they're all just like ideas that I've curated from books and courses and all the rest of it. It's like, what is of strategic importance for me this week?
Yeah, good question.
Do those things.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, because I want to wrap up on the nutrition piece, because, you know, I'm a big fan of Arnold, and Arnold used to say that, you know, 6-packs are made in the kitchen, not in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the nutrition can be quite a complicated journey to go on if there seems a lot of conflicting information out there.
Yep.
So based on your experience with the people you've coached, the nutritional advice you'd give, if you're a CEO and you're really busy, and like, where do you start? What's 2 or 3 things that somebody could do as a result of listening to this conversation that will help them build a, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 million pound business, but have the energy and the clarity to kind of go on that journey?
Firstly, don't say you're too busy to focus on your nutrition.
Great.
Like, nutrition is important. Like, food fuels your whole physical, mental, emotional kind of body. So make the time for it. Like, it's a non-negotiable for me. If you want to look at the research shows most positively that the best diet for human health and performance is a Mediterranean diet. Most people know what that is. Fresh fruit, vegetables, whole grains, meat, fish, nuts, bit of dairy, that kind of stuff. Construct it in a way that's balanced, so make protein the focus of every meal. Make sure you've got at least probably 2 servings of vegetables or fruit per meal. The big thing that I find people are held back by with nutrition is they're not actually very good cooks.
Okay.
So when they go to construct their nutrition, their repertoire is very limited. So if I sat down with a lot of people, like, you know, how many great breakfasts that can you cook? And they're like, oh, well, I've got this porridge recipe and sometimes you do egg on toast. And then like, great. So you've got like 3 options. That's why you're bored. And then that's why you gravitate towards whatever's very convenient, because ultimately you're kind of bored and fatigued and you just go for convenience. So become a better cook. Like, you have to invest a little bit of time.
That's a great tip.
And I'm good in the kitchen. So like, even if like eggs, I've got like 10 different ways that I can cook eggs. Amazingly fast, takes me 5 and 7 minutes between every dish. But if you're really like time constrained, there are healthy, convenient options. Like, there's many kitchen companies now that are doing great ready meals for like, you know, £5.50 in the supermarkets. But we have to build our awareness. And if you don't spend a bit of time learning about nutrition, expect to not get the outcome that you want. You have to invest a little bit of time. You know, every one of my clients at some point, I'm like, you've got to count calories at some point. Like, because you have no idea what's going in your mouth.
Yep.
And the only way of restricting yourself is becoming quite extreme by saying, right, I'm no longer going to have sugar and this and that and that. And I'm like, that's the only way that you're able to restrict yourself, is becoming very extreme. Okay, it is a bit of a burden to count calories for a month, but it's the same in business. You would go and study a book to learn about marketing or whatever. You have to invest the time to learn. But for me, nutrition's a life skill.
Yeah.
If you and me are going to live to 85 and we eat 4 times a day, that's a lot of meals. And if you don't have a life skill behind that basic physical need, for me, it's ludicrous to not invest time in it.
I have to say, I'll admit that counting calories is just something I've always struggled with mentally. For me, there's just a block there for me. I've got better at it for sure, but it's still the biggest. There's an inner resistance around that. I don't know whether it's the apps, or I think Oura Ring now you can take photographs of your food and it counts all the calories, I think now, just from memory. But yeah, I don't know why that's always felt more challenging. I don't know why. I think it's a maths thing. I don't know, but I think there's a freedom part of my brain that thinks, I can't be free if I've got to count everything. There's that trap.
For sure. But all I'm trying to do with my clients is build up their skill set so that if they eyeball a meal, so if you serve me pasta at your house with meatballs on it, I can look at it and go, it's about 800 calories, because I have a visual memory of volume of pasta against the calories.
Nice.
I know that beef is roughly 2 grams. What's the language I'm looking for? It'll be 2 grams of fat per gram. So whereas chicken's like 1 gram. So I can quickly add that up in my head. Like fruit and vegetables, I'm like, okay, a banana's got about 100, 120 calories, an orange is 80, an apple is 80, grapefruit's 120.
Yeah.
I've got that memory bank. So actually, I don't count calories every day, but visually I know what I'm eating.
That's a good way to do it. I like that. That's a good way to do it. Yeah, no, I definitely like that approach. I think that's more bang on. Great, love that tip. Was there one other?
No, that was 5.
There was that 5?
No, we covered it, yeah.
Well, water wasn't in there, though.
Nutrition. It's just a given, isn't it? If you're not drinking enough,
you'd be amazed how many people don't, though. But anyway, final question I love to ask every guest on this show is, what's your definition of a grown-up business?
Grown-up business. A business that provides for your grown-up life.
Ooh.
So I'm 39. I'm a dad of 2. I want to be present for them. I want to provide for them. I want to have the time to love them and help them grow. I want to go on lots of adventures. I want them to feel that my energy is really there with them. And as an entrepreneur, my energy wasn't. It was always on the business. I was always thinking of what's next.
Yeah.
So I want my business to help create the life we want. And we have the life we want. We have a beautiful life. And am I building more abundance? Yes. But I'm not sacrificing anything. I have boundaries. I will work 20 to 25 hours a week, and in that time I will build more abundance, but I will not give more, because otherwise I'm living my life and being a dad.
Love it. Brilliant. Ben, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation.
Thank you.
Obviously, people can find out more about Awesome Supplements and everything you do online. We'll check out and follow you and put the links to all of your awesomesupplements.co.uk and to your LinkedIn profile where people can check you out. And obviously, join the other 40,000 odd followers on Instagram as well. So
why not?
Why not? Why not be part of that community? Listen, thank you so much. It's been awesome to have you on the guest of the show.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Take care. That concludes this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. I hope that got you fired up and ready to grow. The key thing, though, is to remember you get paid on what you get done. So write down the top 3 actions from the show and make sure that you implement those in the next 72 hours. Hey, and while you're at it, make sure you click the links and the resources below this episode to claim free growth resources to help you build the business you desire and deserve. I'll see you on the next episode.